back to ONYX Pages. I'm in Jerry. This video is going to be really short because, as my wife reminded me, I have an appointment and I need to leave and I'm 100% procrastinating. So it's not going to be a book review, but it is going to be a book recommendation. So this book is written by the amazing Samuel R. Delany. He is well, if you're an Afrofuturist or if you're interested in Afrofuturism or black science fiction, you would have heard of Samuel Delany because he was one of the first black science fiction writers to just make a number of prolific novels that started the discussion, or at least continued the discussion about science fiction and black folks. Although we're not going to be talking about black folks in this particular book because I don't know that there are many in this particular tale. So this book is called City of a Thousand Suns, and it is actually, and I didn't realize this when I picked this up at the store in my neighborhood, but this is the third book in a trilogy called the Fall of the Towers trilogy. And this trilogy consists of 3 works. 1, Out of the Dead City. 2, The Towers of Toron. And then 3, City of a Thousand Suns. Now, I usually don't read trilogies out of order, but for some reason I picked up the 3rd book of this trilogy and didn't realize that it was the 3rd book. So that's why I'm not actually reviewing it, because quite frankly, I didn't really understand most of what I was reading. And I think it's because of Samuel R. Delany's writing style. He is extremely gifted in his writing. He is so descriptive. His words are almost romantic. He has an amazing ability to describe space, to describe emotion, to describe relationships. And that's what makes his writing so... it's like quicksand. You just kind of sink into his world and you're just there. It was a very challenging book to read, not because of, because of a couple of reasons. Number one, because I hadn't had enough time to get into the world that he created in this trilogy, and so I was a bit lost. But also his style is very staccato, so he will change the points of views very quickly and really abruptly, and so you will, at one point be thinking through the eyes of a non-human being, and then the next moment you're thinking through the eyes of a telepathic giant, and then in the next moment you're thinking through the eyes of a woman who's trying to figure out how to escape a mental institution. Like there's a lot of quick changes in the perspective here, and it can be a little bit hard to keep up if you haven't read the first two works of this trilogy. And I would assume that the first one was probably a little more of an ease into the world, but I won't know until I read it. But what I do want to do is I want to read to you the first page and a half of this book, because he got me from the get. I mean, I think I was probably on the streetcar and I read this and I just thought, this is going to be a delicious read. And so I'm going to read it to you. So this is chapter 1. What is a city? There's at least one on the planet Earth, isolate among deadly seas, alone on an island near a radiation-pitted continent. Some of the sea and the land at the edge of this continent have been reclaimed. Among these silent tides and still plains, there is an empire. It is called Toromon. Its capital city is Toron. Halfway around the universe, in a dispersed galaxy, is another city. A double sun throws twinned shadows from a tooth of rock jutting in the sand. The gullies sometimes shift in the rare breeze. The sky is blue, the sand lime white. Low on the horizon are streaks of clouds. and down the steep side of one powdery dune is the city. What is the city? It is a place in the sand where a field of energy keeps the octagonal silicate crystals in perfect order, lined axis end to axis end. It is a place where a magnetic compass would spin like a top. It is a place where simple aluminum has the attractive capacity of sensitized alnico. And although, at the moment, it housed hundreds of inhabitants, there was not a building or structure of any kind in it. The sand was no longer smooth, and only a microscope could have detected the difference in the crystalline placement. Responding to the psychic pressures of those who observed it, at times the city seemed a lake, at others a catacomb of caves. Once it had appeared a geyser of flame, and occasionally it looked like buildings, towers, looped together with elevated roads, with double light glinting from thousands of sunward windows. Whatever it was, it stood alone on the white desert of a tiny planet halfway across the universe from Earth. Okay, so I read this, and I live in a city, and this took me away from the city that I live in, and it got me thinking about what it would be like to live on a planet where there are geographical regions that respond to the psychic pressures of the inhabitants of that city. And in this particular chapter, Delany goes on to describe a responsive, pulsing place where the city molds to the ways that the inhabitants perceive their surroundings. So he perceives the city through the experience of a crystal, or a worm, or a plant. And when we think about the impact that human beings have had on the planet, what a lot of environmentalists will do, and what a lot of successful eco-conservationists will do, is they will try to get us to think about how different species would experience the planet as a result of what we've done to the planet. And while I don't know that Delany professes to be an environmentalist, I do think that there's something really compelling about right away in this book encouraging the reader to shed their humanity, or their way of experiencing the world as human, in order to consider all of the characters, animate and inanimate, in this book. So I just really enjoyed being pushed and stretched and folded in the way that he did it right at the beginning of this story. The rest of the book was wonderful. It has me interested in reading the first two books, but I don't have them in my reading schedule, so I'm not sure when I'm going to return to this trilogy. But I did have the opportunity to meet Samuel Delany at the Naked Heart Festival of Books. It's an LGBT festival in Toronto, and it was organized by Glad Day Bookshop. And he's amazing. He gives amazing hugs, and he's also just an amazing thinker. He's so warm, and he shares a lot about his experience living in the world as a Black gay man, writing as a Black gay man, science fiction writer. And so it was an honor to read this work, and I'm looking forward to reading more of his books. In fact, if you are interested in Delany, these are books that I have on my shelf that are TBRs, but they don't have a date. So I've got this one, Dahlgren by Samuel R. Delany. This is one of the books that he is most famous for. So as you can see, you got to commit to this read. The text is pretty small, and there are, wait for it, 879 pages to this tale. And it's also, it's got this Toronto Public Library card from back in the day, from 1985. And so if this book gets lost or damaged, you're going to have to pay the whopping fine of 25 cents. So I think that's pretty cool. And I also have ABC, 3 short novels by Samuel R. Delany, a science fiction fantasy Writers of America Grandmaster. And the 3 short novels that are here are The Jewels of Aptor. It's a science fiction story about a seafaring quest to find powerful magical jewels on a mystical forbidden island where unimaginable danger lies. Like, why wouldn't you read that? The second is in The Ballad of Beta 2, a future academic searches for the truth behind an interstellar voyage, a journey over multiple generations that ended in tragedy. And then the third is They Fly at Siron. This tells the clash between a marauding army and a peaceful village at the foot of a mountain. From the peaks and ledges, a race of winged people observe both sides till they must make a choice. I love the way Delany brings into his fantastical world the kinds of choices that we as political and social actors have to make on a daily basis. Because, I mean, we're confronted with so many things in our world, and we're bystanders, and then we have to choose. We have to choose a side, and then we have to act. And I think that his third story gets at that a little bit. And then this one is Nova. And so Nova, 1,000 years from now, among the stars of the Pleiades, to the sons of the outer colonies, Captain Lork Von Ray and the starship Rock race Prince and Ruby Red of Redshift Limited for the transuranic element Illyrian, power source of this glittering tomorrow. I'm not even sure what that sentence means. Lork Von Ray is scarred from an earlier clash with the Reds. With his artificial arm, Prince has committed unspeakable evils. Caught up in the conflict are, and then he lists a host of characters. Filled with adventures, mysteries, and marvels, Nova is a compelling vision of the web and ways in which society, labor, and art interconnect. So this is Nova, this is ABC, this is Dahlgren, and this is City of a Thousand Suns, and these are all amazing works by Samuel R. Delany. So I recommend that if you are interested in science fiction written by Black authors, in this case a Black gay author, and also someone who has been dubbed an Afrofuturist, and in speaking with him, I don't know that he would call himself an Afrofuturist, which is actually quite interesting. But I would definitely recommend that you consider these books and consider his work. I am going to leave and go to my appointment right now. Thank you very much for watching ONYX Pages, and I'll see you next time.